Victor Ashford stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his Manhattan penthouse, watching the city lights blur through sheets of rain. At 37, he owned half of Wall Street, commanded respect from world leaders, and possessed a face that magazines called devastatingly handsome. Yet behind the sharp suits and sharper mind lived a man who had forgotten how to feel. The medical reports lined his desk drawer. Stress-induced emotional detachment, the doctors claimed. Psychological numbness from years of high-pressure decisions. But Victor knew better. Something inside him had died long ago, leaving behind only a shell that went through the motions of living. Women had tried everything. Actresses draped themselves across his arm at premieres. Heiresses whispered promises in darkened corners. Models pressed against him in silk and diamonds. His body remained unmoved. His heart stayed frozen. He had stopped believing anyone could reach the empty space where his feelings used to be. A night like no other, the storm hit the city with unusual fury that Tuesday evening. Lightning split the sky as Victor returned from another meaningless board meeting. His driver dropped him at the entrance of his Fifth Avenue mansion, a sprawling estate that felt more like a museum than a home. Power flickered as he entered. The backup generators hummed to life, casting shadows along the marble hallways. Victor loosened his tie, exhausted by another day of pretending to care about profits and losses that meant nothing to him. He walked through the dimmed corridors, toward his study, his footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Thunder rolled overhead. Then lightning flashed, bright and sudden, illuminating the hallway ahead. The vision in the storm. Victor stopped breathing. There, framed by the storm's electric light, stood a young woman he had never seen before. She carried a basket of folded linens, her dark hair falling in damp waves around her shoulders. Her simple white blouse, soaked from rushing through the rain-lashed garden, clung to her frame. She moved with quiet grace, unaware of his presence. Her face held a gentleness that seemed impossible in his cold world. She was arranging flowers on a side table, humming softly to herself, lost in her own thoughts. Victor felt something he had not experienced in over a decade. His heart slammed against his ribs like a prisoner desperate for freedom. Heat flooded through his chest. His breath caught painfully in his throat. Every nerve in his body suddenly came alive, screaming with awareness. The woman looked up. Her eyes widened when she saw him standing in the shadows. Large, brown, honest eyes that held no calculation, no agenda, just surprise and a touch of nervousness. "Oh, I apologize, sir," she said quickly, her voice soft and musical. "I did not know you had returned. I was just finishing the evening arrangements." Victor could not speak. His throat had closed completely. He managed a brief nod, his hand gripping the doorframe for support. She gave a small, respectful bow and hurried past him, the scent of rain and jasmine trailing in her wake. Her footsteps faded down the hallway, leaving Victor rooted to the spot, his entire world tilting on its axis. The impossible truth: for several minutes, Victor remained frozen. His pulse hammered in his ears. His skin felt too tight. His hands trembled as he pressed them against the cool wall. What had just happened? How could this be real? After years of nothing, how could a simple maid, whose name he did not even know, shatter his defenses in a single moment? He forced himself to his study, poured a glass of scotch with unsteady hands, and collapsed into his chair. The rational part of his mind insisted it was exhaustion, a trick of light and storm. But his body knew the truth. For the first time since he could remember, Victor Ashford felt alive, learning her name the next morning. Victor summoned his head of household, Mrs. Patterson, a stern woman who had managed his staff for 15 years. "The new girl," he said, keeping his voice carefully neutral. "The one with dark hair. When did she start?" Mrs. Patterson consulted her records. "That would be Lily Chen, sir. She began 3 weeks ago. Excellent worker, very quiet and respectful. She sends most of her wages home to support her grandmother and younger sister." "Is there a problem?" "No problem," Victor replied, dismissing her. But his mind raced. Lily Chen. The name echoed in his thoughts like a melody he could not forget. He told himself to stop this madness. She was an employee, barely more than a girl, from a completely different world. To pursue these feelings would be wrong on every level. He had built his empire on control and discipline. He could certainly control this. Yet when Lily appeared that evening to serve his dinner, moving quietly around the dining room with downcast eyes, Victor felt his carefully constructed walls crumble further. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gentle curve of her smile when she thought no one watched, the grace in her smallest movements. His fork clattered against his plate. Lily glanced up, concern crossing her face. "Are you well, sir? Shall I bring something else?" Their eyes met. Time stretched impossibly long. Victor saw kindness there, and intelligence, and something purer that his jaded world had convinced him no longer existed. "I am fine," he managed, his voice rougher than intended. "Thank you, Lily." She nodded and slipped away, but not before he caught the faint blush coloring her cheeks. She had noticed his gaze, and unless he was very wrong, his attention affected her too, as Victor sat alone in his vast dining room. The untouched meal growing cold before him, one terrifying truth crystallized in his mind. After a decade of feeling nothing, his heart had finally awakened. And the woman who held the key to his frozen soul was the one person in his world he should never touch. The storm outside had passed, but the storm beginning inside Victor Ashford was only just beginning. Victor Ashford had faced corporate raiders, hostile takeovers, and billion-dollar negotiations without breaking a sweat. But he could not survive a single night without thinking of Lily Chen. He lay awake in his king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment in the hallway when lightning revealed her to him like some kind of divine intervention. He rose before dawn, telling himself he needed to review quarterly reports. The truth was different. He wanted to catch a glimpse of Lily as she began her morning duties. He found excuses to walk past the kitchen, the library, the garden where she tended the roses with careful hands. Each sighting made things worse. The way sunlight caught in her hair, the soft melody she hummed while working, the genuine smile she offered to the other staff members. She was real in a way no one else in his life had ever been. No pretense. No hidden agenda. Just honest kindness that made his chest ache with longing. The failed test Victor decided to prove himself wrong. He would attend the annual Metropolitan Charity Gala, surround himself with the most beautiful women in New York, and demonstrate that his reaction to Lily had been nothing more than a momentary lapse in judgment. The ballroom at the Plaza Hotel sparkled with obscene wealth. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. The city's elite gathered like peacocks, displaying their fortunes through diamonds and silk. Victoria Sinclair approached first, a renowned actress whose face graced magazine covers worldwide. Her emerald gown left little to imagination. She pressed against Victor's arm, her perfume expensive and overwhelming. "Victor, darling," she purred, "dance with me. I have missed you terribly." He allowed her to lead him onto the dance floor. She moved against him with practiced seduction, her body curves pressing close, her lips near his ear whispering suggestions that would have made most men weak. Victor felt absolutely nothing. His heart remained steady, his body stayed cold. When the song ended, he excused himself politely and moved to the bar. But the women kept coming. Francesca Romano, an Italian heiress with legs that seemed endless, trapped him in conversation. Her fingers traced patterns on his sleeve. Her laughter tinkled like expensive champagne. Nothing stirred within him. Catherine Park, a tech mogul who had built her own empire, offered him something beyond physical attraction: intelligence, power, partnership. She was everything logical choice dictated he should want. Yet when she touched his hand, Victor felt only the desperate wish that those fingers belonged to someone else. The crushing realization by midnight. Victor stood on the hotel balcony overlooking Central Park, his jaw tight with frustration. He had danced with 8 different women, each one stunning, each one willing, each one completely unable to make him feel even a fraction of what Lily's simple presence created. The test had failed spectacularly. Or perhaps it had succeeded in proving what Victor feared most. His awakening was specific, singular, terrifyingly focused on one person he could never have. He left the gala early, ignoring the disappointed faces and whispered questions. His driver navigated the quiet streets while Victor pressed his forehead against the cool window, watching the city blur past. When he arrived home, the mansion stood dark and peaceful. Most of the staff had retired for the evening. Victor walked through the silent hallways, his footsteps echoing on marble floors. Then he heard it, soft humming drifting from the conservatory. A stolen moment. Victor found Lily watering the orchids, her back to the doorway. She wore a simple cotton dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. The moonlight streaming through the glass ceiling made her seem almost ethereal. She sensed his presence and turned quickly, nearly dropping the watering can. "Mr. Ashford, I thought you would be out all evening. I was just finishing the plants." "I returned early," Victor said, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. The event was tedious. Lily nodded, setting down the watering can with careful hands. "Shall I bring you anything, sir? Tea, perhaps?" "No." Victor stepped into the conservatory, drawn forward by a force he could not name. "Tell me something, Lily. Are you happy here?" The question surprised her. Her eyes widened slightly. "Yes, sir. Very much. The position allows me to help my family. My grandmother needs medicine, and my sister is still in school. This job is a blessing. And what about you?" Victor pressed, moving closer despite every warning bell in his mind. "You want for yourself?" Lily hesitated, her fingers twisting together. "I want what everyone wants, I suppose, to be useful, to make a difference even in small ways. To perhaps fall in love someday, though that seems unlikely given my circumstances." The words struck Victor like a physical blow. Love. She still believed in it, still hoped for it. While he had convinced himself such things were fairy tales for fools. "Why, unlikely?" asked quietly. She laughed, a soft, sad sound. "Look at me, sir. I am a maid. I have no education beyond high school. No fortune. What kind of future can someone like me expect?" A dangerous truth. Victor found himself standing directly before her, close enough to catch the scent of jasmine in her hair. His hand lifted of its own accord, nearly touching her cheek, before he caught himself and pulled back. "You underestimate yourself," he said, his voice rough with emotion he could barely control. "You have something far more valuable than education or fortune. You have goodness, genuine kindness, in my world that is rarer than diamonds." Lily looked up at him, her brown eyes searching his face. For a moment, the space between them crackled with unspoken words. Victor saw his own confusion reflected in her gaze. She felt it too. This impossible pull that defied logic and social boundaries. "Mr. Ashford," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I should go. It is late, and this is not proper." "You're right," Victor agreed, but neither of them moved. They stood frozen, caught in the moonlight, separated by mere inches in an entire world of impossibility. Finally, Lily lowered her eyes and slipped past him, her shoulder barely brushing his arm. That brief contact sent electricity through Victor's entire body. He heard her footsteps fade down the hallway, then the soft click of her door closing in the servants' quarters. The war within Victor remained in the conservatory until dawn, sitting among the orchids, his head in his hands. He was fighting a war against himself, and he was losing badly. Every rational thought told him to stop this madness. Lily was his employee. She was young, innocent, completely dependent on his household for her livelihood. To pursue her would be an abuse of power. It would ruin her reputation, would destroy the carefully ordered life he had built. But his heart, a treacherous organ that had been silent for so long, refused to listen to reason. It beat only for her. Its body responded only to her. His thoughts circled endlessly back to her. In her small room, Lily sat on her narrow bed, hugging her knees to her chest. She should not have stayed in the conservatory. She should not have looked into his eyes. She should not have felt her heart race when he stood so close. She knew the rules of her world. Maids did not dream of billionaires. Girls like her did not attract men like Victor Ashford. Yet something in his gaze tonight had been different. Vulnerable. Almost desperate. As if he were drowning and she was the only one who could save him. She pressed her hands against her flushed cheeks, scolding herself for foolish fantasies. Tomorrow, she would keep her distance. She would remember her place. She would protect her heart, before it led her into disaster. But even as she made these promises, Lily knew she was lying to herself. Something had changed between them in that moonlit conservatory, and neither of them could pretend otherwise anymore. The battle within both of them raged on, neither willing to surrender, neither able to win. The forbidden feelings grew stronger, with each passing moment like a tide that could no longer be held back. 3 weeks passed in exquisite torture. Victor and Lily moved around each other like dancers in a carefully choreographed ballet, never touching, rarely speaking, yet acutely aware of every breath the other took. The tension in the mansion grew thick enough to cut with a knife. Victor threw himself into work with desperate intensity, scheduled back-to-back meetings, flew to 3 different cities in 1 week, and stayed at the office until midnight. None of it helped. The moment he returned home and saw Lily arranging flowers in the foyer or heard her voice drifting from another room, everything else disappeared. The other staff members noticed. Mrs. Patterson watched with worried eyes as Victor forgot appointments and left meals untouched. The cook whispered that something was troubling the master. The gardener mentioned how Mr. Ashford spent hours staring out windows instead of reading his usual reports. Lily struggled equally. She volunteered for extra duties, keeping herself busy from dawn until exhaustion forced her to bed. But no amount of work could erase the memory of that night in the conservatory. The way Victor had looked at her, the gentleness in his voice when he spoke of her goodness, the almost touch that had left her skin burning. The rainy afternoon, Friday afternoon, brought another storm. Rain hammered against the windows as Lily carried fresh linens up the main staircase. Thunder rumbled overhead. She had nearly reached the top when lightning flashed, startling her. The basket slipped from her hands, sheets tumbling down the stairs. "Oh no," she gasped, hurrying after them. "Let me help." Victor's voice came from behind her. Lily spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. He must have just arrived home. His suit jacket was damp from rain. His dark hair fell slightly across his forehead. He looked tired, almost haunted. They both reached for the same sheet. Their hands collided. Another pulled away. Contact sent shockwaves through both of them. Lily looked up into his eyes and saw something that made her breath catch. Raw need. Desperate longing. And underneath it all, a vulnerability that broke her heart. "Mr. Ashford," she whispered. "Please, please, what?" His voice was rough, strained. "Please pretend I do not think about you every waking moment. Please act as if my entire world has not shifted on its axis because of you. Please continue this charade that is slowly destroying me." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "This cannot happen. You know it cannot. I am just a maid. You are Victor Ashford. The distance between us is impossible." "I know," he said bitterly. "Believe me, I've told myself the same thing 1,000 times. I've tried everything to make these feelings stop. I attended that gala surrounded by women who would have been perfect for me. Beautiful, wealthy, sophisticated women. Do you know what I felt? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But you, Lily Chen, you walk into a room and I can barely breathe. The sheets lay forgotten on the stairs. Rain continued its assault on the windows. Thunder rolled through the house like the voice of fate itself. "Why me?" Lily asked, her voice breaking. "I have nothing to offer you. No beauty, no elegance, no education. I am nobody." Victor moved closer, his hand lifting to cup her face with infinite gentleness. "You have everything that matters. When I look at you, I see honesty, kindness, a light that my dark world has been missing. For 10 years, Lily, I felt nothing. No joy, no desire, no hope. I was a walking corpse in an expensive suit. Then you appeared in a lightning flash, and suddenly I remembered what it means to be alive." Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. "I feel it too. Every time you are near, my heart races. Every time you look at me, I forget how to think. But I am terrified. If anyone discovers this, I will lose everything. My job, my reputation, my ability to help my family, and you will face scandal." "I do not care about scandal," Victor said fiercely. "I have spent my entire life being what others expected, perfect, controlled, untouchable. I am tired of being untouchable, Lily. I want to feel. And you are the only person who has ever made that possible. The hidden wound. Lily reached up tentatively, her fingers brushing his cheek. Victor closed his eyes at the contact, a shudder running through his entire body. Tell me why, she said softly. Tell me why you stopped feeling all those years ago. Victor opened his eyes. For the first time, Lily saw past the billionaire mask to the wounded man beneath. I was engaged once, he began, his voice heavy with old pain. Her name was Rachel. I was 27, building my first company. I loved her with everything I had. I worked 18-hour days to give her the life she deserved. I bought her a house, jewelry, everything she wanted. He paused, his jaw tightening. Then I discovered she had been cheating on me for months. With my business partner, they had been laughing at me behind my back, planning to steal my company's secrets and run away together. When I confronted her, she said I had been too focused on making money to notice she needed attention. She said I was boring, emotionless, just a walking wallet. Lily's heart ached at the pain in his voice. There, that something inside me shut down, Victor continued. I told myself feelings were weakness. Vulnerability was dangerous. I built walls so high that nothing could reach me. I became exactly what she accused me of being, emotionless, and I convinced myself I was better off that way. Till the storm, Lily whispered. Till you, Victor corrected. You walked through those garden doors, soaked from rain, carrying your basket of laundry, and suddenly, all my walls crumbled. I felt everything at once. Terror, joy, desire, hope. It was overwhelming. I have spent weeks trying to convince myself it was temporary. But every time I see you, I know the truth. You healed something in me I thought was dead forever. The choicely stood on her toes and pressed her forehead against his. I am afraid, she admitted. I have never felt this way about anyone. I do not know how to navigate this world you live in. I am terrified of being hurt, of hurting you, of everything falling apart. So am I, Victor said honestly. But I am more afraid of going back to that empty existence, of never knowing what we could be together. I cannot promise this will be easy. Society will judge us. People will talk. But I can promise you honesty, respect, and feelings so strong they terrify me. Thunder crashed overhead, as if the universe itself was weighing in on their decision. Rain streamed down the windows, blurring the outside world until only the two of them existed. What are you asking me? Lily whispered. I am asking you to take a chance, Victor said. Not as my maid, not as someone beneath me, but as my equal, as the woman who brought me back to life. Let me court you properly. Let me show you that what we feel is real and worth fighting for. Lily pulled back slightly, searching his face. She saw sincerity there, and vulnerability, and a hope so fragile it could shatter with a single word. She thought of her grandmother, who had always told her that true love comes when you least expect it. She thought of her younger sister, who believed in fairy tales. She thought of her own heart, which had already made its choice weeks ago in that first lightning strike. Yes, she breathed. I am terrified, but yes. The first kiss, Victor's eyes widened with disbelief and overwhelming relief. His hands trembled as they framed her face. Are you certain? No, Lily admitted with a tearful laugh. But I am certain that walking away from this would haunt me forever. Victor lowered his head slowly, giving her every opportunity to change her mind. When their lips finally met, it was gentle, reverent, and earth-shattering all at once. Lily felt as if every nerve in her body had caught fire. Victor made a sound deep in his throat, pulling her closer, the kiss deepening with 10 years of pent-up emotion finally finding release. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Victor rested his forehead against hers again, his eyes still closed. I feel like I have been asleep my whole life, he murmured, and you just woke me up. Lily smiled through her tears. Then let us stay awake together. Outside, the storm began to clear. Sunlight broke through the clouds, streaming through the windows and painting everything gold. It felt like a blessing. Like the universe was finally giving its approval, they stood together on those stairs, surrounded by scattered linens and began the most terrifying and beautiful journey of their lives. Two people from different worlds, choosing love over fear, hope over despair, and each other over everything else. The emotionless billionaire had finally found his heart, and the gentle maid had discovered she had the power to heal what seemed forever broken. Their story was just beginning, but in that moment, nothing else mattered except the truth they had finally unveiled. Love had won.